Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Barsay, and I'm president of the American-Israel Friendship League. Friendship League. For 15 years now, the mission of our organization has been to create friends for the State of Israel. We have done this by introducing Israel to the people of the United States, what it is to live in Israel, and what it is to be an Israeli. We try to be positive and optimistic in our messaging. We try to focus upon some of the great things that come from Israel. But every so often, we need to deal with some of the harsh facts, that more difficult facts of life Israelis need to deal with in their day-to-day lives. Harsh circumstances that require Israelis to adapt rather than to succumb. Growing up in Israel during the 70s, when terrorists came from Lebanon to kidnap and kill hostages, we did not stop going on school trips. Rather, we took precautionary steps, including giving carbines to 17-year-old kids to serve as guards on school trips and during school parties. During the Second Intifada, when suicide bombers were blowing themselves up all over the cities, we did not stop going out. Rather, we learned that by dining at the back end of the restaurant, we'll minimize the chance of getting hurt, because the suicide bombers typically detonate their bombs at the entrance. Over the last 10 years, Israel has learned to protect its civilians from indiscriminate missile attacks by developing and deploying the Iron Dome. Yet the absurdity of realpolitik is that Israel is being condemned for deploying this very defensive capacity and for not sharing it with the very people who are sending the missiles from Gaza. Over the last 10 days, Israel has been defending itself from vicious, indiscriminate attacks. Our organization itself was personally hit by these attacks when a member of our community, Nadine Awad, was killed in Lod from a Hamas missile. Just that morning, Nadine had participated in our satellite technology session for students from the US and from Israel. As a member of the Israeli Arab community, Nadine and our program have epitomized what our organization is about, creating bridges of friendship that span geography and communities. Nadine's death brought to home the vulnerability of children in Israel and their exposure to a daily showering of indiscriminate missile attacks. I'd like to thank Brigadier General Dan Goldfus for taking time from an obviously very pressured time period and for joining us today to help us reach out and understand what is happening. As an organization, we want to build a bridge so that our friends in the US can reach out to our friends in Israel, share a virtual hug, and show them that they are not alone, even in these days of insanity. Thank you once again, and please, everyone, do stay safe and healthy. And I'd like to transfer the microphone over to Wayne Firestone, our Executive Director.
Greetings, everyone. We are here today not because we want to be. Many of you who are on this call know that American Israel Friendship League has been running 2 webinars a week, every Wednesday and Sunday, that showcase friendship and relationships between Americans and Israelis on every front. And over the course of the period of COVID, where we were all stuck in our homes and under a form of self-quarantine, we have covered amazing people and amazing areas of collaboration between our 2 countries, including in the area of military collaboration in working with the IDF. But today, we're not meeting on a Wednesday, we're not meeting on a Sunday, and we're not talking about what we've learned from one another's. We are unfortunately in a period of crisis, but one in which Israel is always preparing for and always prepared for. And so it's our opportunity to learn about the resilience of Israeli society, how it does go on. We will continue to do our webinar program. We have since the beginning of this crisis, but it was incumbent upon us to give all of you an opportunity to hear directly from the people involved on the front who are in harm's way, and at the same time trying to protect all of Israel's citizens at this very dangerous and frightening time. I'm pleased to introduce the Commander-in-Chief of the Paratroopers and Infantry Corps, Brigadier General Dan Goldus. Dan has a career in the military which spans and begins in 1995 as a naval commando. He served in the counterterrorism and raid unit, and he's also been a commando SEAL in the attack unit. More recently, he was the Nahal Brigade commander of ground forces, and since 2019, and has been in his current position as commander-in-chief of paratroopers and infantry. The format for our session today is that General Goldus is going to begin with a briefing to share his update from the field and from a national perspective. And then afterwards, we will have an opportunity for questions. We ask for you to make them succinct, put them into the chat if you're in Zoom, if you're on other channels, including Facebook. You can send those in. We will be monitoring all the channels, and then we will feed the questions individually to General Goldus based on his availability. General Goldus, let me turn it over to you, please.
Thank you very much, and it's good afternoon from here, and good afternoon, sorry, over there, and good evening over here. And thank you for all the people and the community that are listening and are interested and are taking part in the well-being and the safety of the State of Israel, the people, the land, and all that is involved. 10 days ago, Operation Guardian of the Walls started. It was a Monday. It started when an evil terror regime, Hamas, had fired rockets into the capital of the democratic state of Israel, while taking hostage on their side in Gaza approximately 2 million Palestinians, citizens, and at the same time targeting the central cities within Israel, the populated, dense areas, without any military targets into Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Holon, Sderot, Be'er Sheva, and all the cities and villages around. These terror coward leaders on the other side, while sitting in their underground bunkers, put their population, whom they claim to have responsibility over and care for, in harm's way. You know, conflict is not anything but good. It is terrible. But Israel will not and is not apologizing in any way for defending its people, defending the state, defending the villages, by deploying the batteries of the Iron Dome, which we all know are not only defending the people of Israel, but they are enabling this conflict from escalating to levels which will put in harm's way even more people. So Israel is defending the people. Since this operation has started, Hamas has fired over 4,000 rockets into the populated cities of Israel. As we speak, at this moment, rockets are being fired into Israel. Alarms are going off. Women, children and elderly people are running into their safe rooms to prevent from Hamas to carry out its objective, to prevent from Hamas the ability to injure, kill, and disable Israel from creating its day-to-day action. More than 550 missiles of those over 4,000 missiles fired by Hamas have landed in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, injuring and killing Palestinians within the Gaza Strip with no differentiality. We have attacked approximately 1,300 targets. But these targets are all well thought targets, military terror targets, which we have fired, which we have eliminated, which we have taken away from this terror army and terror regime on the other side, to disable their abilities to attack us, to disable their abilities to create and to maintain their terror regime in Gaza. This war, this conflict with Gaza, and these rockets didn't start yesterday, didn't start 10 days ago. This has been going on for 20 years, 20 years, on and on and on, firing into populated, dense areas. We in Israel are carrying out this operation until we will meet our objectives. We are targeting buildings which are hosting and housing terror activity, such as intelligence, technological abilities, such as rockets who are being fired from in these houses and in these buildings. You can see a lot of the footage that has been put out in the media by the IDF spokesman on the targeting throughout the Gaza Strip. We have attacked tens of kilometers of underground bunkers and tunnels which enable the Hamas to maintain their operation, their terror operation, whether to attack civilians within the state of Israel or whether to maintain their abilities to fire rockets at all given time into the state of Israel. These tunnels have become death traps for these terrorists. These tunnels, which have been financed over the years by money coming from overseas, instead of going to the people of Hamas, have gone to the infrastructure of these tunnels, to the infrastructure of these rockets and missiles. We have attacked these tunnels and we have destroyed a large portion of these tunnels. We have attacked the communication infrastructure of Hamas, and we have attacked any other terror military infrastructure of the Hamas. But the difference between the Hamas and ourselves is that when we target the enemy, when we decide to fire a rocket or a missile, we look into the information. We make sure that this is a military terror target. Not only that, a lot of the targets being fired at, such as buildings and houses, have been warned before, so that only the infrastructure would be attacked, so that only the abilities would be taken out of order to prevent from the hitting of casualties of civilians. But these civilians, let me tell you, these civilians are hostages by this regime on the other side. But these civilians are suffering on the other side, and I feel for them. I really do. But as much as I feel for them, I feel for the 12 casualties within Israel. I feel for the 100 of children and women which are suffering from the attacking of Hamas. And my obligation is to stand here before you and answer your questions on my responsibility to defend the people of Israel. We have damaged severely the Hamas's infrastructure. We know that they have a problem. These leaders, these terror leaders, they are not connected with the ground, what's going on. They are dug deep inside. But when they'll come up over ground, one of these days, they will see the damage they have created. They will see the truth. They will see all their investment in terror is not worth. We will keep on the operation as long as needed. I speak on behalf of the IDF. We are ready for as long as needed. Our forces are well trained, well prepared, and well armed to defend Israel. We have many targets and we have many options which are ready to our decision makers to carry out at all given time. I think that looking into what is going on at the moment is that today we have received, although relatively quiet, but only relatively, I think we've received over 150 rockets just today. And we call this a relatively quiet day. Iron Dome has managed to take out over 90% or just about 90% of all the rockets being fired. Although we have had rockets hitting populated areas, such as in Beersheba, Ashkelon and Ashdod, just today, at several hours ago. As long as Hamas is going to keep on carrying on its hostile activity, we are prepared and we will carry our defensive activity over in Gaza. During the last week and during the operation, we have received rockets fired from Lebanon as well. We have received rockets fired from Lebanon in 2 attempts, and we have received rockets fired from Syria as well in 1 attempt. All these attempts have failed to hit civilians or any other targets within Israel. The Iron Dome has been effective over there as well. The IDF has retaliated and firing mortars into Lebanon to make sure that these rockets don't keep on being fired into Israel. I think these rockets being fired into Israel have been maybe the ability for everybody to take part, or to try and to take part, or to maybe show that they have some kind of feelings for the Hamas regime on the other side. They're trying to contribute. But anybody who will try to put us in a test will find that we are ready on all fronts. Just the other day, there has been a UAV coming in from the east, from the Iranian regime, the most hostile regime, trying to find us off guard on our eastern border with Jordan. But as you know, we are well prepared with all our senses and eyes open to prevent from any regime or any hostile activities to enable them to carry out their objective. In Gaza, Hamas has attempted to carry out UAVs attacks and drone attacks into the state of Israel. We have managed to prevent all those attacks throughout all the operation of Guardians of the Walls. Hamas have tried to use naval commandos. They have tried to come via the sea. We have prevented that by targeting the unit which was going to carry out the operation with precise intelligence and taking them out. As you know, we have put infrastructure, a wall between on the Gaza Strip to prevent from underground abilities by the Hamas. And the Hamas have been unable to carry out their plan of attacking us via the underground. We have taken their ability to do so. Nonetheless, they have tried to come through underground to proximity of the fence to try and infiltrate the Israeli forces and to attack via land. That was eliminated as well. We are carrying on our intelligent effort to identify, detect, and pinpoint out enemy within the Gaza Strip, to pinpoint out the enemy among the civilians, among those 2 million civilians, so that our targeting will be precise. And so when we fire a rocket, it is precise into a military terror target. Don't be mistaken. The other side is suffering bad. I'm talking about this terror army, this terror regime. They are very much in distress. Very much in distress. But as I said before, there is a disconnection between the leaders and their forces on ground, their terrorists on ground. They know that any movement that they do is targeted immediately, is identified and targeted. We will not sit for a minute and see terrorists walking around free in Gaza, we will target them and we will prevent them from carrying out their mission. We have targeted anti-tank missiles. And as you know, today we have been fired an anti-tank missiles which hit a bus. Thankfully, the bus was empty. But we have taken out a large percentage of their ability to fire anti-tank missiles. We are ongoing and targeting their rocket ability. And we have seen for the last couple of days their ability to fire into the center of Israel has been damaged severely. And if I'm not mistaken, it is, I think the last time that they managed to fire rockets into the center cities in Tel Aviv and Holon and Rishon is 4 days ago. So we have damaged that severely. We have hit and targeted high-rank terrorist commanders within the Hamas terror organization, and we are searching for more, and we will find them. We will identify them. I must say that their ability to hide among civilians and to put the civilians as human shields is more today than ever before. They understand they are vulnerable. They're hiding and they're taking the civilians very much as shields. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, if there are any questions, to any side or anything considering Operation Guardian of the Walls, and any other interesting questions that you have that I can try and answer. I must say that any political question I don't have the ability and I'm not authorized to answer. So thank you.
Thanks so much, General Goldfus. We certainly have a lot of questions. So let me run through. Let's start in the South. I think the most one of the biggest questions is somewhat factual. How does Hamas actually have all these rockets? Where do they get them from? How are they built? And how is this detected?
Thank you. Well, Hamas has been on an ongoing mission to acquire these abilities. These abilities actually are financed by financing from the outside. And a lot of the knowledge is coming via either from Hezbollah or from Iran. And as you know, throughout the years, all the way back to 2002 or 1, I think, if you remember the operation of the Karine A, when we stopped a high seas ship with 80 tons of ammunition, and going on to all these different ships coming in over the years, where we have managed to stop them and stop from missiles coming in. And the Hamas has an objective to enable themselves to have these abilities, these rocket abilities. Technology today is not something that, it's easier to find technology on the shelves. These rockets are just dumb rockets. That's the whole thing about them. You don't need to put millions of dollars into precision. You just put explosive on the edge, you fire the rocket into a huge target as a city, and that's what they put themselves to. They have approximately Hamas and Jihad have approximately 15,000 rockets to fire. Used to have 50,000 rockets to fire. So they've fired over 4,000 rockets. They've taken away about approximately 2,500 rockets. So I think we're over halfway in, but I think we have damaged more than what the eye sees from that point of view. I think that the Hamas, and not only the Hamas, but we're speaking of the Hamas, but this is a characteristics of the regimes around us. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, which use these rockets to hit our vulnerable spot, which is our population. They care not about the population, but they know we care for the population. And that's why they target it. And they are putting in a lot of financing into maintaining and creating that infrastructure of the missiles and the rockets. I hope that answered your question.
So we'll talk about the North separately in a moment, but there's a question that asks about the level of sophistication of the Hamas military and Islamic Jihad from Gaza in comparison to Hezbollah. Are these as sophisticated weapons? Is the training similar, or is it a very different situation?
Unfortunately, these terror armies all learn from each other and all take the inspiration from their big brother back in the East, from the Iranian regime. And the Hamas is I wouldn't say a sophisticated organization, but I would say that over the years, they are becoming more competent in using different weapon systems, more competent in training their people, their special forces, what they call the Nukhba, and digging in underground. Well, this is an evolution, actually. And what we see today that has happened in Operation Guardian of the Walls is that we have taken out a strategic ability that was created in an evolution of conflict, and I will explain. The evolution of conflict started in Operation Cast-Lead and went on to operation all the way up to the operation of Protective Edge. Through these operations, the superiority of the Israeli ability, our abilities, has brought them to change their course of action. They have used the underground to change the course of action completely, going all the way down to almost 70 meters underground tunnels. It's really mind-boggling from that point of view. But these tunnels, they didn't only, have enough by using attack tunnels, but they have created a whole network of tunnels, an underground network of tunnels that we can see it. If you try and imagine it, go to the metro or underground or subway, that's the tunnels that they have underneath. This network of tunnels was supposed to be the surprise of the Hamas. This network of tunnels was the sophistication of the Hamas leaders, of Mohammed Deif and Yahya Sinwar. But this strategic ability, this sophistication has come to a surprise to them in our ability, first of all, to identify where the tunnels are, and second of all, to attack these tunnels. So I would say that what happened today in the operation of Guardians of the Walls is that we have taken out a strategic ability from the Hamas. And it would be very interesting to see their evolution now saying, okay, we've taken out the underground, the on-ground, how do they address that? But I count on this terror regime on the other side and I will use Churchill's words. They will do their worst and we will do our best from all time. And they will use all the financing instead of putting it into the well-being of their people, such as cement. You will see where the cement is going to, whether it's going to build the houses in Gaza or it's going to build or rebuild these underground terror tunnels. You will see the money coming in from places like Qatar or even Europe or even United States, whether it goes to the well-being of the people or it's going to buy new technology for a different rocket. The thing is that we see, and this is one of the things that's been shown, we have seen in the Hamas rockets, which are what we call high intensity rockets, which are like flying barrels. They reach hundreds of kilo or pounds of explosive. Luckily, they are fired not into further areas, but these rockets which they have can do great damage. But these are dumb rockets, very dumb rockets. But they're putting a lot of money and thought into how to use these different things. And it's important to say, again, technology used to be the sole realm of states, but not anymore. Today, the ability to go and take off the shelf technology, such as drones, such as different technological abilities as communication abilities and so on, or disruption of communication is out there. So they are putting a lot of effort into that and have put a lot of effort into that. One of the things we did is we took out those abilities. You might ask me about the terror building, which you or other people, might call it as the communication building or the foreign press building. This is just a camouflage for what this building was. This building held terror abilities. You will hear of it in the next couple of days. You will hear of the things we can release about these buildings, about this specific building. Don't be mistaken. These abilities are there. The use of international, the use of population is there to enable them to carry out their missions. It's very important to understand that, because I hear these questions rise, and it's important to understand that when we take and target a building or a house or any infrastructure, it is after we have a lot of intelligence to tell us that it is precise, that it is used for terror purposes. This building was used for terror purposes. And unfortunately, the Hamas in this situation not only took their own people as hostages, but they took the foreign press as hostages as well. So that is the sophistication you have in Hamas is not only their weaponry, but the way they think on how to use and skew our values, our way of thinking, and so on. I don't know if you've seen this movie of the anti-tank missile fired at the bus. They have put it out in the Telegram. They have put out the movie. This movie shows what they're attacking, what they're addressing. They're trying to to attack our minds. They're trying to influence. They're doing what terrorists do. They'll try and communicate with soldiers. They'll try and communicate with officers. They'll try to lure them into giving information. And this is a sophistication. It's not about only firing a rocket. It's about attacking in all dimensions into the population of Israel. But not only that, I'm standing here before you because there's an ongoing war on Hamas sophistication in attacking the minds of the world, the minds of the people in the world, by justifying firing missiles into populated, dense areas, by trying to connect all kinds of somehow skewed dots that have no connection, and by justifying their lack of well-being for their people. It's just unbelievable. You know, I heard the other day songs by Islamics which sing about the army of Muhammad. The army of Muhammad. Let's just say a word about the army of Muhammad. The army of Muhammad, what was characterized by Muhammad, that he led his people. These people that are in Gaza by the name of Islam and by the name of Muhammad, they are sitting in their underground bunkers. They're not leading anybody. They're hiding. They're sending the people forward. So all this is a part of their sophistication. It's a very large question or larger point of view to speak of the sophistication.
General Goldfus, there's several questions about the AP building that you raised. It's obviously of getting a lot of press, and so you said that there will be details that are going to be released soon about what was known to be there. But there are several questions about, in addition to what you may know, what the press themselves either would be aware of or not aware of. Do you have any indication at this point whether whether there is any intelligence on that?
I think we will release information in the next couple of days, and things will clear out. But to take this terror infrastructure out of context, it's a bit funny. It's a bit it's a bit misunderstanding of the context on the whole. I mean, we have fired at buildings which have been terror infrastructure and the use by terror organizations as intelligence headquarters, scouts, technological abilities, and so on and so on. Why do you think there's a difference between this building and any other building? On the contrary, this is a building that is so-called safe haven for the terrorist organizations. This is a building, a terror infrastructure, which they know is going to create this conversation between us. It's part of their objective. This building was a building used to carry very valuable terror infrastructure and terror abilities to disrupt our abilities. And I can't actually give more information on that, but I want you to try and connect the broader picture to the question is, why in any idea does Israel, who values free press, target a so-called communication building out of context of all the war, the ongoing conflict within Gaza. It doesn't make any logic. It's just something to try and turn around the picture. So, I mean, one looks at things in a pinpoint, but we have to connect and look in the broader picture.
Well, there's no question that the human shields issue that you described at the top of your briefing is one that's deeply disturbing, and the more light that we can shed on that, really, I think in the West will be, and the media in particular, to expose. So we'll look forward to those details. There's several questions that you referred also at the beginning of your briefing to the different theaters that you're actively monitoring, and I know you come from a naval background. Is there a sense that the supplies that are coming, the military supplies that are coming into Gaza, are they coming via ship, and are there ways to interdict them through on the high seas? What is that sitting around?
I think that the Hamas is putting in a lot of effort, or has put in a lot of effort, and will put in a lot of effort to try and bring in all these abilities, either via sea, land, underground, whether it's Egypt, underground tunnels, Sinai, and I think they're doing they're taking great effort to carry out that. We are trying to identify and trying to take as much information as we can and carry out operations against these attempts of Hamas to rearm or to arm their terror forces on any level, any part, whether it's from the sea or via land, underground, and or anywhere else. So from that point of view, we are on an ongoing campaign, which hasn't started 10 days ago. It's been going on for a long time to prevent from these abilities to enter the Gaza Strip and to enable Hamas to carry out, whether it's precision firing or any other high-level technology within the Gaza Strip.
Before we head to the north, could you say a few words about humanitarian operations and how what the situation is with that, and what the role the IDF plays as it relates to Gaza?
Well, we are enabling humanitarian aid to go into to Gaza, and just to make an idea about that, I think 2 days ago, when attempting to put in trucks with humanitarian aid within to Gaza, the forces that were guarding and enabling that to happen were attacked by mortars, and we had an injured soldier over there. So just to show you that even when we bring in humanitarian aid, this humanitarian aid is under fire. So the same today when I think it's the Jordanian delegation going into Gaza were fired upon from the Palestinians, from Hamas, within Hamas or Jihad within Gaza. So that's just to give an idea of that. Even to push in humanitarian aid from Hamas and Jihad is a problematic issue for us to do. Nonetheless, we are pushing in humanitarian aid. If I'm not mistaken, and if you can correct me, we are pushing in on a daily basis humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip as much as needed. I'm sure that is not all that is needed within the Gaza Strip, but it is an ongoing effort by the Israeli government and IDF is to push in humanitarian aid. We have no conflict with the civilians within Gaza. We have no conflict. We have a conflict with this terror regime on the other side. And as I said on my opening notes, I feel for the people of Gaza, but I do urge them to take position against that evil regime, which is taking them as hostages. So to answer the question, we are pushing in, and we are on an ongoing effort to pass on humanitarian aid. This is an ongoing effort which has been carried out throughout all the operation of Guardians of the Walls, and will go on after the operation of Guardians of the Walls.
Moving to the north in Hezbollah, at this point, what's your assessment of their objectives at this point? Were they just throwing up? One of the questioners wants to know if it was a trial balloon to see what your response is, or is there a sense that they're going to try to open a second front?
Well, I take you back to 2014, Operation Protective Edge. I think at that time, 15 rockets were fired into the state of Israel, into the northern part of Israel, via Misgavam and other villages within Israel. So I think it is a bit of a difficult answer. It is not a very one-lined answer that I can give you on that. There are different terror forces within Lebanon, Palestinian, that will try and fire rockets into the state of Israel. This is not Hezbollah doing or taking action against Israel. But as you know, and we all know, that Hezbollah in Lebanon rules with no question, Lebanon and the southern part of Lebanon on even a higher intensity and higher level. So any rocket fired from Lebanon by any different terror group over there is under the wings of Hezbollah, under their open eye. Saying that, we have seen how Hezbollah has parted themselves immediately from the firing of the first rockets. This is a complex situation, but I think Hezbollah is more through by proxies trying to signal that they are thinking of this terror regime down south, but not more than that. Mm-hmm. Are we going to receive any more rockets coming from the north? I can't eliminate that probability that it will happen. And I assume that it might happen, and I assume that it might happen even after, if and after there is some kind of ceasefire. I can't take that out of any probability from that point of view. But I don't think that Hezbollah has, at the moment, the incentive, and I think they are deterred just watching what is happening in Gaza. I think, and what is happening to Hamas and their terror infrastructure, I assume that Hezbollah are deterred very much at this point. And I take you back to the Second Lebanese War, and I take you to 2014, just before Protective at 2013, when they have actually finished building their last infrastructure that was destroyed from the Second Lebanese War. It is something big. Hezbollah see themselves as the guardian of Lebanon, and therefore the deterrence is very, very strong at this point.
So it's not a secret that these attacks came just at the beginning of a new phase of people coming outside after COVID, at a time when the Israeli government was in the process of formation. There's a question that came from one of our board members about how the command leaders are empowered now to make military decisions that are sort of independent of any of the political changes and political leadership at this moment. Could you describe and share your perspective on the IDF's ability to do what it needs to do without regard to any politics and government changes?
Well, thankfully, Israel is a democratic country. The army, the IDF, carries out its missions drawn out from the objectives of the government. It is not a secret that Israel has been struggling for the last 2 years or more in creating a stable government. Although to that, the IDF maintains its ability to carry out missions in a very independent sense, but drawn out from the government's objectives as a democratic state. Our parliamentary system has the cabinet, which will allow us or order us to carry out missions, one or the other. Once the mission is drawn out, once the objective is drawn out, the IDF acts in a very much independent way, while reporting back to the government and to the cabinet on the objectives and what we have met. I don't think that in any way there is, once they are drawn out objectives, any restraints on the IDF to carry out its mission. Saying that, and I emphasize once again, this is a democratic country. This is an army of the country which is acting on behalf. It is not doing things that are not drawn out by the cabinet, by the government on how to do what to do. So, as a simple answer, no. It has not affected the ability of the IDF to carry out its operation. That is the simplest question. On the more broader question, there is an ongoing conversation, as always, between military abilities, military options, which are on ground, on the board, to what are the outcomes in the end. And we have said throughout all this operation that we will use any tool we have in our toolbox to meet our objectives, whether it's airstrikes, whether it's mortars, or whether it's ground forces, maneuvering ground forces. So from that point of view, it's all in the hands of what objective we want to meet. But I do think that we have reached the weakened Hamas in a great deal. We have managed to attack not all, but a lot of their infrastructure, and they are hurting. They are hurting bad.
General Goldfus, first and foremost, thank you for your service to Israel, and we know that you, as is with many people on this call, have friends and family who are in harm's way now, who are serving their country and seeking just to defend the country so people can eat a little hummus in peace. And we're grateful for your candor and your willingness to spend some time to sort of give us a better understanding beyond the media in this way. We know that you've been working long hours, you and your colleagues, and the entire civilian population that hasn't been able to get a decent night's sleep because as they're listening for and being traumatized by air sirens. We're grateful for your service. We're grateful for our partnership with the IDF to give us some insights. We look forward to doing that when this conflict is over and you all can get a decent night's sleep and see your families again for more time. We wish you safety. We wish you thanks for doing this. Yeah, you have one more comment before we close out?
Just one more comment. I want to thank you very much for as well taking the time to listen. And I want to say that, as I said before, there is an ongoing war in the world, and you are in the front as well. And it is a difficult front as well. And I thank you for listening. I thank you for taking the time. And I invite you to Israel because it's a beautiful country as well, although we have rockets. But when it quietens down, please do come. Thank you very much.
And we will come. We appreciate that invitation. We look forward to a big reunion. That is at the core of what we do at the America-Israel Friendship League, is bring delegations to Israel to enjoy that hummus in person. We can't do that right now. This Sunday, we've got a great opportunity for a virtual tour at the Dead Sea with the Dead Sea Scrolls and a visit to Qumran and some recent excavations. So we don't stop. We keep going all through COVID, all through this period. We invite all our friends who have been here to keep Israel's safety in your hearts and in your prayers, and keep joining us. We will look to build this community and build the support for Israel in good times and in hard times. Everyone be safe. Thank you again.
Thank you.